I'll call me in order. What did I do? Everybody walking all at once, like that's something's going on. So appreciate everyone coming today at 6 o'clock on welcome to the Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 meeting at Beaumont City Council, regular council meeting. I'll call meeting in order at 6 p.m. I'll begin with the land acknowledgement as we usually do with our meetings. We are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The city of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We're all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. Next on our agenda, I will be going through 3 proclamations this evening. So, excuse me. World Down Syndrome Day, March 21st, 2022. Whereas in December of 2011, the General Assembly of the United Nations designated March 21st as World Down Syndrome Day. And whereas approximately 1 in every 750 babies born in Canada today has Down syndrome, and an estimated 445,000 Canadians are living with Down syndrome. And whereas research and early intervention have dramatically improved the lifespan and potential of those who are affected by Down syndrome, more investigation is needed into the cause and treatment of Down syndrome. And whereas possessing a wide range of abilities, people with Down syndrome are active participants in educational, occupational, social, and recreational activities in Alberta's communities. And whereas people with Down syndrome have tremendous potential to live full and fulfilling lives as contributing members of the community. And whereas the city of Beaumont values people with Down syndrome and their families and supports the well-being of all individuals with Down syndrome and their ability to function as fully accepted members of society. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dowling, do hereby proclaim March 21st, 2022 as World Down Syndrome Day in the city of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 23rd of February, 2022. Second proclamation, International Day of Elimination of Racial Discrimination, March 21st, 2022. Whereas the city of Beaumont is committed to the belief that equal opportunity and equitable treatment should exist for all people, and whereas every resident of the city of Beaumont has the right to realize his or her potential, regardless of race, color, cultural, or ethnic origin, and live at all times in conditions of dignity, respect, and peace. And whereas in 1966, the General Assembly of the United Nations designated March 21st as the International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And whereas elimination of racism, racial discrimination can be accomplished through mutual understanding, acceptance, and respect for the dignity of all people and rights of all people. And whereas elimination of racism and racial discrimination is the social and moral responsibility of each person. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dowling, do hereby proclaim March 21st, 2022 as International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination in the city of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 23rd of February, 2022. One more. Earth Hour, March 26, 2022, 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Whereas our nation's use of energy continues to increase, resulting in detrimental effects on the world's climate. And whereas it has been estimated that during non-essential lights out in Canada for 1 hour could save as much as 15% of the energy consumed on an average Saturday night. And whereas the energy savings will reduce carbon emissions into our air, preserve the natural resources and use to produce this energy, set a positive precedent for the rest of the nation, and result in ongoing reduced costs for the community, taxpayers, and business in the city of Beaumont. And whereas participation in Earth Hour 2022 will provide the residents of the city of Beaumont with insight into the impacts of lights on energy consumption and raise community awareness on the need to conserve energy whenever possible. Therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dowling, do hereby proclaim March 26, 2022 from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. as Earth Hour in the city of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 23rd of February, 2022. Thank you very much for your attention to that. Next on our agenda will be the adoption of the agenda. Administration, are there any amendments to or changes to our agenda this evening? Oh, hang on a second. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any additions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you very much. Is a member of council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as presented? Councillor Miller.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I moved that.
Next on our agenda will be the adoption of the agenda. Administration, are there any amendments to or changes to our agenda this evening? Oh, hang on a second.
My voice got.
Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any additions to the agenda.
No problem.
No problem.
Please continue.
Sure. Could we just bring back that motion there, please? All right, I move that the March 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on the motion from council? Seeing none, please vote accordingly. Now, let me just get the sign in. Please use your vote button, please. Thank you. And that passed unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. There are 4 items, council, on the consent agenda, being as follows: 5A, special council meeting of March 8th, 2022. 5B, regular council meeting, March 8th, 2022. 7D, special council meeting time change. And 11B, regional initiatives update. Is there a member of council willing to move the consent agenda as presented? Councilor Barnard, you have the floor.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask council to vote on the motion on the consent agenda. Thank you, council. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda would be our open forum. Ms. Winter, is anybody this evening presenting on open forum, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one resident that is scheduled for the open forum. Mr. Wallace, if you'd like to come forward to the front there to do your presentation.
In 1 second, Mr. Wallace, make sure I have the proper mic button.
I am here requesting you to consider a snow dumping bylaw. People shoveling or throwing snow and ice from their properties onto other properties without permission, especially against housing. If I throw that snow and ice that was put on my property from their driveway, I can be charged and fined. This bylaw would help peace officers, RCMP, so they don't have to say nothing can be done. Without this bylaw, the city is allowing this to happen. In our society, we are trying to achieve zero tolerance for bullying, discrimination, and violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Wallace. I appreciate your very brief presentation. Thank you very much. Questions from council for our presenter? Councilor Barnard, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And to the resident, thank you very much for coming forward with that. I wonder if you could just tell me, is your concern about the neighbor and the behavior about how to deal with that? Or is it something that the city actually needs to do? Is it related to a property issue between you and a neighbor or many neighbors? Just a little more detail on that.
I think this would accommodate residential and commercial properties if this situation arises for them. For me, yes, it is. I reported to the RCMP and many times, and the last time, because I don't have concrete evidence, like I don't have a camera showing him throwing ice against my house, there's nothing can be done. So I figure with this bylaw, at least it would stop. And to me, I'm pretty sure he goes out of his way to dump the snow against my house and throw ice against my house over a 6-foot fence. I was told to put up my fence. I put up a fence and he's still doing it. But the RCMP and the bylaw said they can't do anything. So I think this would solve not everybody's problem, but it help quite a few people.
Thank you for
And
giving
I've
me more
been
detail.
threatened by him too. So this is, I think with this bylaw, I'm not sure it's going to accommodate everybody, but it accommodate a few. And then the peace officers and RCMP would have something to rely on as a tool. It's not going to be used all the time, no, but hopefully it isn't. In our society, we're trying to eliminate lots of things, but until something comes forward like that, I think it would help, but that's my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions for our presenter? Thank you for coming this evening. We'll take it
Thank
report
you.
under advisement, your presentation. Thank you very much, Wallace. Next on our agenda is registered presentations. We have one this evening, the Beaumont Social Enterprise and Food Bank Collective. I believe Mr. Camille Brube will be our presenter and Mr. Paul Hyde will be our presenter this evening. Gentlemen, if you could please, you have roughly 10 minutes for a presentation. We had previously a counting clock on the screen. It's not available this evening. So at 2 minutes, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a wave, give you about roughly 2 minutes, and we'll have time for questions from council after the presentation is over. So if you could introduce yourselves as you speak and have the mic close to we hear you nice and clear. Thank you, gentlemen. Begin your presentation when you're ready.
Your Worship, Mayor Daniluk, members of council and staff, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I'm Camille Birbe. I'm chair of a social enterprise working group. Paul Hyde is the vice chair, and also representing the Leduc Food District, or Leduc District Food Bank, is Gert Rayner, the executive director, and Tony Robinson, the treasurer. And also present from our group is Shilpa Jaswal, who is our secretary, Carolyn Thorpe, who is a director, and Karunesh Saroya, who is a committee member back here. And unfortunately, Bern Hyde and Tim Pringle, who are also members, are not able to be with us. And I'll let Paul do the rest of the talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille. I've been voluntold to do it, so that's okay. Can I please have our PowerPoint put up onto the board, or because this is just our business proposal? You did not receive the PowerPoint? Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I can speak to it anyway, sort of an idea. So I can speak to it, that's fine with that. The purpose of our presentation to council today is to inform the council of the community and project with Leduc and the District Food Bank. We have a creation of a social entity. I'm sure that you've all received this business proposal and had a chance to peruse it, but it is a social entity known as the Community Circle Thrift Center, or CCTC for short. We love in Beaumont to have lots of C's and T's. Project in conjunction with the community and social development and linked according to your actual Beaumont social master plan, as it may be. Now, a social enterprise by Development of Canada says that a social enterprise is an innovative business model, whether nonprofit or for-profit, that pursues a social, cultural, or environmental mission through the sales, goods, and services, with the majority of its net profits directed back to its mission. That is what we're proposing to bring to Beaumont. Beaumont has a, as you will see by the City of Beaumont Social Master Plan under income and social status. Part A is employment and income security. We definitely want to have more basically employment and income security. And we believe by bringing in this with your social master plan, this can certainly help by partnering with the community and organizations to support and programming focused on building individual financial literacy and knowledge. This means that those that are demarginalized in our community can find the means to get some financial help and literacy through the food bank and through, of course, a thrift store that we'd be putting back into social programs into our community. Poverty reduction, obviously, less cost of goods, quality goods, and having a place to go to buy affordable child's wear or anything of that nature is definitely needed in Beaumont. So that definitely helps with poverty in Beaumont. And food security, we could not do this without the Leduc and District Food Bank. And that's why we're partnering with the Leduc District Food Bank in order to have a satellite location here. Mr. Mayor and Council, we have such a need here in Beaumont. And the problem sometimes is that we here in Beaumont are a very affluent community. And so we demarginalize those people that are seeking the food bank. There is over 100 families here in food bank, 100 families here in Beaumont that use the food bank every single month. And that is shocking to most people here in Beaumont that live here, but it is true. If you would have seen by our presentation, in 2021, the Beaumont had 64 families, 142 hampers that were delivered A total number of adults and children was 248 in the city of Beaumont alone. That equated to 35,560 pounds distributed of food with an approximate cost of $92,456. That's just in Beaumont. So obviously the need is there for us to have a satellite office here. And so this group of people that are behind me and with me today had a vision to not just bring the food bank here, but also to provide goods and services to people at a very low cost. And that's why we came into the Circle Thrift Community Center, because we need to be able to provide those things here in Beaumont and not be sending people out of town or somewhere like that in order to find those, especially with the price of gas nowadays. And it costs you $10 to go to Walmart, so it's incredible. So we're really trying to take a look at that. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the vision or the mission of the CCTC, but our vision is to provide quality merchandise at affordable prices to generate income that can be cycled back into the local community. And I want you to know that that is the biggest stress that we want to do, is bring it back into the local community. We have nothing against Goodwill or any of these other places, but most of that is not kept in the direct community that they're working with. We want to make sure it stays in this community and helps the people of Beaumont and the surrounding area. Also offering educational components as well. Our mission is to enhance the lives of individuals by providing accessible, affordable, and quality merchandise while generating income to offer upcycled items and educational programs to the demarginalized people in our community or the people of need. There has been so much need, obviously, over the last little while with COVID and such. Now, unfortunately, with our business plan, actually, fortunately, you did get a breakdown of the costs. Our whole thing is to become revenue neutral, as any non-for-profit would want to be, to put as much money back into the community as possible. So basically with our revenue, just to break it down very easily, in 2022, 2023, and 2024, obviously we can't get up and running right at the beginning of 2022, we're already half in. We'd like to have about $20,000 in sales, moving up to $90,000 in sales by 2024. We know that with grants and fundraising, and with some help from the Leduc and District Food Bank, that we can cover quite a bit of these costs to start, but startup costs are very expensive, and especially in Beaumont. You won't find anything for less than $24 a square foot, and that's being generous. And then if you add operating costs on top of that, it doesn't take long for you to be at $30 a square foot. So we need some help. We are asking for the city of Beaumont to look at their master plan and see how well we fit into that master plan and to help us get things started. We're not asking for you to do this in perpetuity at a large amount. We just need to get started. So we're asking the city of Beaumont for 2022 for $60,000 in funding. 2023, that would go down to 40. And in 2024, that would go down to $20,000. To get this started off. And then we're hoping, well, we know we can do this, is to be able to have enough sales to run most of this ourselves and not have to do as much asking. The Circle Thrift Store is definitely one of those things that I believe in. I had to use food bank as a child when my mother was a single mother, and I want to give back. And I know that that's why all of these people want to give back as well, because they see that we are very lucky and fortunate in Beaumont. And there are not many people there are those that aren't as fortunate as us. So in closing, I would say our vision for the CCTC is very much in line with the city of Beaumont. We know there is a need because of the food bank numbers for low cost alternatives for the city and surrounding community. It is time that Beaumont recognizes this need and partners with this social enterprise to help break down the stigmas around food insecurity and poverty for our citizens of need. I hope I'm on time there, Mr. Mayor.
I think we've got time left over. That's not a bad
Well,
thing
then
at all.
hopefully we have some time.
More
some
time for questions. It's not a bad thing at
That'd
all.
be
Thank you,
fantastic.
gentlemen, for the presentation. Much appreciated. I know the PowerPoint probably threw off a little bit there, but they came through fine. We had the report prior to this evening's agenda to have go through it. So this time I'll open the floor to questions from council.
And if
And
I
I
might, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
with
please.
The presentation, we will make sure that is sent to our elected officials so that you can see that we actually did the work to present.
We actually spent lots of time on it.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And look forward to having that additional information. So I'll start with Councillor Miller, followed by Councillor Tessie, followed by Councillor McCoff Swain. So Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you so Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Hyde and Mr. Burby, for coming out here and explaining all that to us on the fly like that. I had a question around the educational piece because you explained the two initial pieces, but I'm interested in the educational, the piece of it where you say programs support life skill development that will lead to a reduction in dependency on community agencies. So I'm just interested to hear what that looks like. And I read a little bit about, financial education. So just, yeah, I'd love to hear more about what that looks like for your vision.
So a lot of that has to do with our partnership with the Leduc and District Food Bank. And Gert, can you speak to any of that at all?
Sorry, I'm trying to get the presentation to you.
No problem.
What was the question?
The question about the educational component to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, Gary, would you mind coming to the microphone so the people at home can hear you? Maybe pull up an extra chair if you don't mind, in case of an additional question you may want to field. Thank you.
and Tony can speak to this as well as I can.
Go ahead.
I'll get everybody up there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Tony is supposed to speak tonight, not me.
That's all right.
So in Leduc, of course, we have our Kitchen Learning Center, and this all depends on the location that we would be located at and the space that we have. What we're looking at presently does have a bit of a kitchen in there. So some of the programming we are already offering, and some of the clients who actually come to our area, we do have clients from Beaumont who are taking part in that one. The thrift store portion is more about the same kind of idea or concept that we do with our skills area, just giving them other. So the thrift store, for example, there's lots of stuff that you can do environmentally to help environmentally. You don't need to throw things out. You can teach people how to use them differently. Example, you have an old t-shirt, you don't need to throw it out. We certainly could teach them how to make a rug and sell it. We could teach them skills that they wouldn't have that could possibly lead to further income for them. One of the concepts would be looking at a little marketing corner within the thrift store. So it would not just be something that you could come and shop at, but there would be the potential. We have already several volunteers here from Beaumont who would love to come and share their knowledge in some of the things that they're able to make and upcycle, which is a pretty popular thing to do these days. So it's not just about, there is no place here for any of our families to go and get anything for children. You just don't have that ability here. That takes care of that part. But then there's the other educational component. And with our programs that we've been doing in Leduc with the kitchen and our skills, we have definitely, one of the outcomes unexpectedly, and we'll say Kathy was very helpful in getting that started. One of the outcomes we found is that we build their self-esteem and their self-confidence up, where they're willing to try other things and take part in other things and get reconnected to the community. One of our programs in our kitchen is we spend 2 days with just mental health clients. So mental health books their clients, they bring them in, we do a special program just for them. So it kind of grows, and you kind of find what the gaps are in your community and try and fill those gaps.
And we also would, a lot of us want to volunteer our time. For instance, I run a financial place right now called Brightview Financial in town, and more than happy to have seminars for free for anybody that doesn't understand what an RSP is, what a tax-free savings account is, what those type of things are. Definitely not. There's so much financial illiteracy out there, and that we can help a lot of people with that are struggling, that just don't know where to go for all of this. So
if I might, there's also opportunities to work with the high school, because they've got job placement programs. They've got kids that are got some challenges, handicap, and there's a great opportunity to work with the schools and other
churches and other groups as well. We definitely want to work with all.
That would be looking at job skills being perhaps more employable, more marketable with the skills that we have.
And including other agencies like the county who have some programs running here with our clients or low income individuals, where we certainly could incorporate them into that.
Some help.
Kind of,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you. That was a fully loaded explanation. So-
There's a lot there. Yeah, sorry.
That was a lot, but thank you very much. I'll let
Yeah.
some of the others get their turn to
Thanks, Greg.
ask some
I'll let
questions.
Tony sit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Counselor Tessier, you have the floor. Renee, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and really appreciate the presentation, and to all your volunteers. Obviously, you guys put a lot of work into this, so that's one impressive piece. And thank you for bringing the statistical data as well. As you know, that wasn't in our pieces of information, so that was great
It
to
was on the
hear.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, it was a secret PowerPoint. But yeah, I do appreciate it, and it's one of those things that you know, you don't know unless you know when you're in it. So I feel like Beaumont's a place that wants to give back to the community, and there's nowhere besides kind of the Goodwill bins. We've all seen that on Facebook where it's just overran and there's nowhere to go, right?
There is
So-
the Karma Pantry. I want to definitely point that out.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
That does help with some people. We just want to do it broader.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's a good point that I was going to mention that exact thing, the Karma Pantries. So many people give to it and so many people take from it, as we can tell. So there's a for sure a need in Beaumont. So can I ask a question from administration? And if we were to proceed, how this would affect tax levy or where this money comes from?
CEO Schwartz.
Yes, thank you very much. Through the mayor to you, Councillor Tessier. We'd have to have a look at some options and then bring that back. That would be my suggestion, is that you turn this back over to Vin, and we can turn this around very quickly and come back with some funding options and recommendations.
Perfect. Appreciate that. And yeah, for my fellow councilors in the room, I'm total support of this. Great presentation, and thank you to all your volunteers and all the work you guys do in the community. So thank you.
It should be noticed that we already do have donations that are coming through the food bank that will be kept here in Beaumont towards the Thrift Store Beaumont project here. That already a $2,000 donation from the Beaumont Curling Club. So we're on our way already, and we have a lot of people that want to support this. Sobeys is 100% behind it, and we have a lot of that happening.
One last question too, and is it going to be set up kind of like a Goodwill where, you know, kids' toys, clothes, we can bring that? It's kind of the same setup.
Yeah, it'll be a thrift store, a true thrift store.
Okay, that's-
We need to set up what the parameters of it are going to be, but there's combination clothing and housewares are some of the initial stuff that we've talked about, and so we'll have to look at what
Be
that
space
looks like.
consideration too, obviously. but
And
there's
also
consideration.
space, yeah.
And just so I think everyone's going to be shocked with the amount of donations, because like personally, I just took 2 truckloads once the kids start moving up. So there's nowhere to do it in Beaumont. So thanks again. I'll let the other counselors kind of weigh in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I have prepared a motion for council to review at the end of the discussion regarding how to go forward with this topic, but it's okay. We can talk about it ahead of time. So just so we know, we're well past 15
Sorry.
minutes. No, it's okay. This is also a situation where we have lots of questions from council. So I want to, give council a chance to ask you questions. So I'll ask council to please ask succinct questions and provide succinct answers, and get everybody a chance to speak and be answered accordingly. We'll kind of keep it hopefully under 20 minutes from now. So next to speak is Councillor Muckoff Swain, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you guys for coming in. I just start off want to acknowledge the partnership that you guys have created here, and I think that's crucial to the success here. Obviously, some people's idea, and to bring that partnership together is crucial, I think, to get this done. I'd acknowledge that the social master plan opened up a lot of eyes in Beaumont. Some of the numbers that you're sharing here. Not a shock to me, but only because I've seen the information. But when that plan came out and when I talked to people about that, that was definitely a shock, because you're right. Beaumont is a very affluent community, but that doesn't speak for all of Beaumont. So thank you for the work on that. I have 2 quick questions. One's for administration, or maybe you guys can answer it. I see Kim Williston listed here in the brochure. I wonder if you could just speak to her role in this, in terms of with her city hat on, or is this as part of a volunteer? I wonder if you could just clear that up, please.
You recognize what I'm not sure, the title has changed so many times. So anyways, whatever the work that she does with FCSS is obviously support the social needs of this community. So she's been involved right from the get-go, working with Gert.
And so she's been very supportive of the initiative. She's looked at the presentations, she's looked at information. She's provided support staff. Sandra has been the recording secretary, done a lot of the support work for this group as well. And so definitely she's one of our partners along with the food bank in this process.
I'd just like to add to that is that I've worked very closely with your SCSS program and especially the families. We want to make sure they connect here. But this is also a great opportunity for us to partner with them and perhaps maybe having a staff there that can work with people who may not want to go where they are in another location. So it is another really, this is really a holistic collaboration with the city, with and a number of other organizations, not just what we're presenting tonight.
Yeah, and I appreciate the partnership approach. I just wanted to be clear, like if she's there in her role as the director of the FCSS, and therefore, you know, the city of Beaumont is kind of endorsing this, kind of putting us in a bit of an awkward position up here. So I just wanted to get that clarified. I see the CIO has an update there.
Yeah, my understanding is Ms. Wilson is acting as a private citizen in this circumstance. And CEO Schwartz, can you elaborate perhaps?
Certainly, through you to Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Ms. Williston and FCSS, as part of the services we offer, have been supporting this group as it gets set up and organized. The notion of whether she supports it or not, she's not in that position to do that and represent the city of Beaumont. That's why it's in this council chamber.
Thank you. And that's all I was looking for. And obviously the work that her and her team does is amazing. I just wanted to make sure that clarifying that question was clear. What you're asking for is the operational costs here.
Yes, yeah, it's to start our cost basically.
And
to the rent, getting the product in, getting the shelves set up, getting the people in, all of those things.
For sure.
Towards all that.
And I respect that. The question I had is, I was surprised when I read through it. I was waiting for a capital ask to come along with it. You don't have the space and, you know, tenant improvements and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to check in that, you know, the OPEX cost that you're asking us for, that's basically what you're looking for from the city. But no capital costs that will be coming with that.
No, we know we got to put in the work, and we actually do believe that these organizations run by volunteers and it runs by getting grants. And we're going to put together a great committee to go out and do the fundraising and do that kind of thing. We do believe that it takes a village, of course, and that's the important thing. We're not here to ask that the government of the day give us all the funding. We do believe that this is a great giving community. And so we want the Beaumont town, city of Beaumont to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I do believe it is the government of the day's role to help succeed, help you guys succeed in that. So I won't tip my hat any more than that. I'll look forward to your motion that you bring forward, and really want to appreciate you guys, everyone, for all the work that you've done to bring this forward. It's very exciting when I read through that again this morning. So thank you.
Can I just mention one thing? As a food bank, I also want to make sure that you understand that our commitment to this is that we recently had a donation offered to us from Beaumont, which we have committed is going to go towards this project.
Okay.
So if the dollars are coming from here, we want to make sure that
They stay
it's
here.
there to support.
Yeah, to Councillor Tissier's point earlier, I mean, the amount of trips that I drive in with a van full of stuff goes into the city, right? That my wife just piles up in the back of the car. I'd love to be able to do that here. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Maybe
Thank you.
just not make it a whole truckload at a time.
That'll be a good problem to have.
We'll have
Okay.
to pace ourselves.
Thank you, council. We have 3 more councils who want to speak. We're almost at 30 minutes now. So I don't want to cut off the discussion, but we need to be succinct in our questions and our answers, please. I don't want to cut things off, but if I have to, I will. I'd rather not. Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor McCook, and then little old me. Councillor Van Newkirk, you have the floor, Steve.
I'm kind of looking forward to the little old me part because the anticipating emotion.
Yeah, I'm going to get into it quickly.
But anyways, what I wanted to add to the conversation is just to really hammer home the thoroughness and the work you guys put into the business proposal end of this. it really, every time I wondered something, I flipped the page and I saw the next step and I saw the next step and I saw the next step and I could see how this was all coming together. So I really appreciate the work that you guys put into that to bring in. And anytime in Beaumont, I see a call for need and support, on social media. Next thing you know, there's a corner of a classroom full of food, right? So I don't have any doubts that this will come to fruition, and look forward to seeing the motion that will come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Councilor Barnhart, you have the floor, Kathy, followed by Councilor McCook. Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for bringing this forward. It's in my wheelhouse, and I really am excited to see it finally coming before this council. Lots of questions, but I've been kind of given notice that I better keep it short. So I think the one that I'm most interested in hearing from you is around, I think I saw in here somewhere that FCSS has been considering potentially having some counseling available or some co-locating in your site, or did I dream that? Did that come up somewhere?
Well, there was discussion about the possible services that could be utilized, and I'm not sure what FCS's program will be or what it would look like. But definitely there's an opportunity if the space allows and the interest is available and the service is needed. I'm sure that Ms. Williston will be working with us to look at what the programs are. We're talking about supporting people that are looking for employment, building job skills, that kind of stuff, probably more so than the counseling. The food bank has some training dealing with food prep, etc. So if we have the space, it can be incorporated as well there.
Given my familiarity with FCSS, I'm thinking around the funding sources in terms of what FCSS can fund, because well aware that we can't fund the food bank through FCSS, but potentially other services that are tied in here might fit. That's where my head was going. One last question, Mayor. Have you approached developers or landlords for support? So, because I'm looking at the biggest expense in here.
Yes, we have. We actually have a meeting this Thursday as well. We've approached several, although there's not a lot of space within Beaumont. In the business plan, you will see 3 different areas that we did approach, and we are still actively searching to make sure that we find the right fit.
And potentially they might contribute.
Exactly.
Easy for me to say,
we're
but hard
asking
to
for
do.
some rent relief to start. Of course, we're a nonprofit, and it's in their, hopefully in their interest to help us out as well.
Wonderful. Well, good luck and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McCook, Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too had quite a few questions, but I'll be brief. I think the idea is great. Everything you guys listed out in the community impacts are clearly well thought out, and it's clear that it would have a good impact and be positive for our community. And it's obvious by everyone coming here today as well that you're all really passionate about it. So it's great to see. To Councillor Munkoff-Swain's point, I also really like the interagency collaboration piece, as it shows it's really integral for our citizens so they have the best access to services. So that's great. You spoke a little bit about venue selection, and I saw it in your business proposal. Should you get funding and stuff, when are you guys kind of expecting to get things off the ground?
That'll depend on the ability to nail a location. I know that the businesses, the people that we spoke to are very, very anxious to lease the space. So if we get commitment, we're ramping up, ready to go.
Oh, good. Okay. And then you spoke, there was a piece that said donated items to create new and unique merchandise as a marketing component to the overall project. Can you expand on this or give an example? Would this help with revenue?
I think
or?
that it came from what Gert was talking about, redeveloping and recycling those or upcycling those type of products, whether it be quilting or something of that nature, and not just throwing them directly into a landfill or anything of that nature. We do believe in that. That's the way we would
One
do
of the
it.
projects that we've done in our kitchen is we've worked with the local quilters and our local secondhand store who've given us men's dress shirts, and we've made aprons for the clients out of them. And they're beautiful. These are all kinds of skill sets that people can, if they wanted to, eventually make a business out of.
So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay.
To keep stuff out of the landfill as much as we can.
Yes, no, I definitely really like the upcycle piece to that as well. You guys have clearly tied in a lot of different pieces. the community need as well as the upcycle and all that stuff. So I think it's a really great project, and I look forward to the motion that's coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Would you please put my motion on the screen if you could, please, before I ask I have one quick question, if you don't mind. The ask of roughly 60,000 for 2022, is that using funding primarily for the thrift store or the food bank, or a combination of the two? Is it one as the operator? Where's that 60
Well,
grand
we
gonna
are in
be
partnership
allocated
with the
to?
food bank. So
Right.
the 60,000 would, because we have to set up the entity separately from the food bank because of the way that it has to be done. We would be using that $60,000 to primarily get the space ready and ready to go for that component.
Okay, good.
But the food bank, of course, is going to be in that same space.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for your presentation. With that point, we'll ask President to curtail. Thank you very much this evening. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I will, Councilor Marco Spain, do you wish to move the motion, or you have a question on the motion? Thank you. I will move that the March 2022 presentation, Beaumont Social Enterprise and Food Bank Collective, be referred to administration to prepare a report on the feasibility of accommodating the funding requests as set out in the business proposal, and that the report be prepared by the end of the third quarter of 2022. Discussion on the motion, please. I have Councilor Markov Swain and then Councilor Van Newkirk. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. My initial reaction when I saw that was the third quarter seems like a long way away for what they're asking for. To me, and I know our administration, you got a million things on your plate, and here comes a million and one. But from my perspective, and I think what I'm hearing from folks up here, this doesn't seem like there's going to be too much of a challenge to get 4 votes. It'll be a challenge to find out where that comes from. But I think, well, I would like to see administration get an answer to this group a lot sooner than October. So I'll leave that there.
Yeah, I'll speak to that for 2 things. Appreciate your comments. The mission was prepared before the presentation this evening,
Yep.
and details around the presentation, and also around CEO Schwartz's comment that we may be able to turn this around fairly quickly. So having said that, I won't put CEO Schwartz on the spot, but I will. In answering Councilor Swain's question, can we realistically look at amending the motion to have it sooner than the end of the third quarter? CEO Schwartz, your thoughts on that, or perhaps Ms. Bujaya's thoughts on the timing of the motion? Oh, sorry, microphone button. There you go. Sorry, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Down. Like, yeah, I hadn't seen the motion as it was prepared earlier today. Certainly, we can do that quicker than the third quarter. From my understanding, most of the business cases are already taken care of. It's just a matter of identifying funding sources and then bringing it back to council. So I don't see any reason why we can't have this done either in April or May.
Okay, then what I'll do, I will, before I go to Councilor Manukra's question, I will amend my own motion to the end of the second quarter of 2022. Please.
I heard April or May.
Well, if sooner, but
If I could get it done by April, let's get it done by April. So I'll leave it there as your motion. Sorry.
it's okay. You can amend it if you want, or friendly amendment if you want to make it, but I think second quarter is reasonable. They'll probably get done earlier, which is not a bad thing. So Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to suggest an amendment to that was a tad more aggressive. And I was going to say, bring back a report to the April 12th, 2022 council meeting. That was going to be my suggestion. And then administration could weigh in on that timeline, right? So we're looking at both ends of the spectrum. Sounds like we want to get something done, and if we're doing it, let's do it. So.
Okay, I appreciate the comment. CEO Schwartz, would you care to, oh, hang on. I just cut you off your mic there. Hang on a second. There you are.
Okay, how about I see your April 12th and raise you to the first meeting in May?
All right, I hear.
And if we can get it done quicker, we will get it done quicker. And I wish Kim was here because I would look her in the eyes and say, can you do April 12th? If we do this tomorrow and find out we can, then we'll bring it back.
Yeah, so that puts it to May 10, I think that looks like. That's the first meeting in May, is that correct? Yeah. Yeah.
No one can't
I
call
would
me
be happy with
flexible.
that. I would be happy to propose that amendment to bring back a report to the May 10th council meeting.
Okay, so rather than having an amendment, I'll simply change my original motion, and that might be easier than going through an amendment vote and then a second vote. So be prepared by the first council meeting in May. of 2022. Always good to be flexible. No comment. Come on. Be more than flexible, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. See anyone else who wants to speak at this time? Councilor Barnhart. Kathy, go ahead.
Just to
please.
weigh in because it's fun, to bring it back as soon as possible. It would be the amendment that I think would make the most sense.
Well, if you want to propose an
I don't want
amendment
to
to what's
nail a
on there.
date down in case the administration can't make it for some reason, but I also think as soon as possible says, Mr. Schwartz said he'd get it here as soon as possible. I will vote for whatever you put up there, quite honestly, but
I prefer the
do
first
think
meeting
as soon as
council meeting
possible
in
is what
May,
you're
but
saying.
yeah, if you want to make the amendment, go ahead. I'm comfortable with the first council meeting in May. But if you want to make an amendment, go right ahead. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, council, please vote accordingly. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, our presenters. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is item 7A, high intensity residential fire report to council. I believe Director of Protective Services, Mr. Melvin will be presenting. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Melvin. You have the floor, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening based on a notice of motion pertaining to the residential, high-intensity residential fires inquiry. Obviously, you've read through the package, so I'm not going to go through word for word. I'll highlight some of the things on the presentation and give you more time to answer whatever questions you have when it comes to where this is coming from, who can enforce it, where it's actually driven out of, what codes, and how it affects obviously the city of Beaumont. So obviously, high intensity residential fires started out in the Alberta Building Code in the early 80s. Once again, the intent behind this requirement is that where a fire department can't respond to a fire in less than 10 minutes, buildings must be either farther away from property lines or protected with extra protections. And that's all to enable us more time to absolutely get control of the fire rather than have 1, 2, 3, 4 homes up upon arrival. So obviously I witnessed this when I was in Fort McMurray on how fast things can spread. So it is a key piece to how our community is developed based on our response time for the fire service. Now, once again, the stated objective in the building code contains some provisions in there for how the spread of fire can affect adjacent structures. Obviously, pretty self-explanatory. When you get these new homes these days that have higher intensity with building materials, how things are made these days, more petroleum products and things, you're going to get a higher release rate. And then in theory, things are going to happen a lot faster than they would in a conventional home built in the 60s with clad siding or even aluminum siding back then. But once again, this is all related to if you can't make it, then developers and builders need to follow the guidelines that are in the building code, like they would do for any other piece in the building code or the gas code or the plumbing code. Those directives are there on how they're regulated through the Safety Codes Act and administered by the council. Where we stand for our service, obviously right now we have full-time staff, including myself, 33 paid on-call members. We have 3 apparatus, 2 engines and a aerial device. And then we also have some 3 support units, commercial pattern pickups. And what we are trained to is a level 2 standard. We provide fire, rescue, and medical services. When it comes to medical service, that's medical first response. That's not paramedic services, not transporting people to the hospital. That's that stopgap where we get called out to bridge the gap between the time of the 911 call and when the ambulance arrives on scene. What our core services are presently to the community: alarms, fire response, hazmat, medical first response, MVCs, rescue, and water and ice rescue. Our one of the challenges that we have here, which is I'm sure nothing new to this council, is a rapid growth, and our demand for fire services place a real demand on this service. We have attempted over the years, based on my research and in discussion with staff, that we tried strategies including overtime and shift scheduling, but now our current hybrid model, which is full-time and casual paid on-call fire service, can no longer meet that response time. So obviously, if you're aware, I started here on the 22nd of November, and on the 30th, this message was delivered to all the developers from planning and development. Now, you need to understand that when it comes to the HERF standard within the building code, I am a safety codes officer under the fire discipline. The building code and the building inspectors, they are underneath planning and development. That's why the message is delivered by planning and development to the developers. So here is our response time, the data that we've calculated. One thing to notice is in 2020, the 93%. Well, why has that happened? Well, that's because everybody was home. And now as slowly as everybody's gone back to work, you can see where our numbers are. Our municipality is very similar to other municipalities our size, where a lot of people don't work in the city. They work elsewhere, so you lose your members that you would normally have. So there's not 25 people sitting at home waiting for the tones to go off. Those people are either shift workers or they are work out of the city, other jobs, whatever it may be. So there was a motion that was put forward on the issues, what options we have. Looking at the options, they all come down to the big thing, dollars, and the tax impact to the local residents and business owners. So obviously a staffing model would increase by 12 members. That's a typical 4-person per shift, 24/7, and that is the minimum that we would have on that. We would still need to rely on our volunteers, our paid on call, and also our surrounding members through mutual aid agreements in the event that we had something larger. The infrastructure piece, obviously where we're presently at, has worked very well for us, but as the city expands, we're not going to be able to reach those outlying areas, especially north of Elan or west to La Rev. So obviously future construction is going to be needed. Current upgrades would need to be made out of the current facility to increase that. Once again, you build a new fire hall, well, obviously you need to put everything in it. And that includes now new equipment, new engines, bunker gear, a variety of things to outfit the current staff. Just building the building is not the simple answer to everything. And obviously now the day-to-day operating of that 2 stations, more equipment, more staff, and to do all of that, where we would be anticipating a 3+ years. And as you're well aware, that just to build an apparatus, just to get one apparatus, is now over 400 days by the time you put your order in. So we can understand that even if today you said, yes, let's make it happen, we are still several years away before that would be ever come to a decision where we'd be able to meet that. So obviously the estimated impact is a significant cost to the city to change from our current model to go right to meeting this standard within the building code. It is a long-term vision that I've seen in the plan, that I've seen in our fire servants review that we had done in 2018. But obviously, if the decision of council is to move that way, I'm definitely not going to say that I wouldn't support that. Obviously, for me, having more members and people on staff is something that I think the city will get there for sure. My concern for sure is the cost to the municipality. When obviously I've sat through the budget deliberations, there's lots of more things going on. And my concern would be as to how actually that's going to be funded to do that. If an immediate cost is to get there for sure. So with that, obviously, there is some concerns from what impact this has on the day-to-day resident right now. This HERF standard affects the developers presently trying to build in our community. So obviously they can't build closer together. So homes either have to be farther apart or they need to be, in theory, more expensive to build. If they're farther apart, that's less real estate for a developer. So obviously they can put less homes on a certain lot in a certain subdivision. So this is what affects them. How it affects the current resident is obviously typically about 85% of the insurance company use the fire runner rater survey to determine what your fire insurance is going to be for your home. Now, there's lots of variables, including in that, as in somebody's claims, history, the house, all of these, a variety of things in there. So in theory, what should happen as your fire department level of service increases in your community, your fire insurance should obviously go the opposite direction, all things being created equal. So that's how that balance works with that. The community would get a certain rating from the fire runner rater survey saying this is what your rating is based on what your level of service is, and then that's how you move forward. So we have a piece here on the developer side on meeting the building code intention of what the intention of the code is. And then two, we have obviously what the level of services a council wants myself as a director to provide to the residents. So there's lots of varieties, how it affects the building code. You just can't say, okay, well, we're only going to follow the building code under the HERF standard, 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday. It doesn't work like that. Either you meet the intention of the code or you don't meet the intention of the code. And that's how it is. The code is not set up where hours in the day, you know what, because right now we're responding Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, 4 members on staff. So people are ready to go during those working hours. Outside of those working hours, it's on an on-call system. So as the tones go off, whoever's available in the community, they start coming in and go traditionally as a paid on-call or volunteer system. So there's lots of moving parts when it comes to this. Obviously, for the fire service, we let planning and development know what our level of service is. They now look at the building code as that's under their portfolio, and they determine that yes or no, it meets the intent of the code, and then let all the developers know that yes, you need to build to the HERF standard, or you need to set your lot lines a little farther apart based on what the intention of the code is. And all those details on how all that works is within the building code. And obviously builders have access to that and their engineers and that. So that's the impact from a building perspective. But I'll leave my comments there, fully open up for whatever discussion you would like to have when it comes to this and concerns that obviously this council may have, either meeting this intent or what the impact is of not meeting it. So.
Thank you, Director Melvin. Appreciate your presentation. At this point, I'll open up to council for questions, starting with Councilor Van Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I put this notice of motion forward to get the conversation going, and thank you for the thorough report. I'll start with maybe just a couple of questions, Mayor. And one of them is regarding a 10-minute fire response boundary map. Can you explain to me that the city of Edmonton uses that? Can you explain to me how that does or doesn't or could not play into where we're at in Beaumont? Thank you.
So presently, you can go on the city's website at the City of Edmonton, show the boundary map of where their 10-minute response time is and where obviously it is not. We're not a full-time service, so a boundary map really would only affect us, as I said, 8:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday. Outside of that, we wouldn't have a boundary map because everything is very subjective when it comes to response time. So we're not meeting the response times now as in the intent of the code. So having a boundary map showing that possibly your house is in it, but the mayor's house is not, 8:30 to 4:30, that is not the intent of the building code. It's either you meet it or you're not. Once you're a full-time 24/7, that's where those boundary maps come in. Planning and development and builders now know that we're getting so far. What is our long-term plan? Oh, here in 2 years is where the new fire hall is going to go. And as development comes through that area, the fire hall gets there, and now you expand your boundary map. But the boundary maps, when it comes to our response, we've had calls that are next door to the fire hall that have been beyond 10 minutes. And we've had calls to a north end of the community, and we've met it. And what's the rhyme or reason behind that? Well, depends on what the members are doing at the time of the day, how many people we have here, what's happening on the weekend, if it's summertime, long weekend, a lot of those things come into variety. So having us a boundary map, once again, does not meet the intent of the code because we're only be able to provide that Monday to Friday full-time career service. And that outside of that is where we sit. So you can't have, the intent is not to have that based on hours in the workday to say you meet it or you don't meet it. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for clearing that up. So in the presentation, you said the current hybrid model of full-time and paid on-call fire service had been, has got us to this point. So is that to say that all of the operational options related to that have been exhausted? Have we looked at more volunteers, more gear, more training, more paid on call, different shifts? Like, are we hearing that all of the operational options that you would have right now have been exhausted?
So presently, one of the concerns that we always face in a hybrid model is staffing. Staffing will always be you can have equipment, you can have gear, but if you don't have people in it, then all it is just material things that sit on the shelf. Presently, we have finished up and are waiting to finish up our last recruit class that happened through 2021. We have another one scheduled for this summer after the holiday break to start again. But we're constantly recruiting in our area. It is something that needs to constantly happen. It is not something that we just stop at and go, okay, we have enough. I have worked in several different models from full-time to hybrid models. Once again, the challenge in our area is that everybody primarily leaves to go to work and having those people available in the daytime. So one of the things that was set up prior to myself arriving here is automated dispatch for structure fires from the city of Leduc. So there is an agreement that we have there. We have mutual aid agreements. I have a good working relationship with the fire chief with the Leduc County. So we have relationships there. And obviously, if it's something that is a large event, I'm confident that we have the resources, or I can call in the resources to mitigate those concerns. But right now, where we're presently at when it comes to our staffing model, we're funded for full-time positions. We're in the process of hiring our fifth position. That kind of takes me out of being in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, and then that will allow that process to happen. But obviously, you'll see us putting more firefighter positions forward through administration. But once again, that will come down to what service delivery model council wants us to deliver to the city. So
that's my two, Mayor. I'll let others and see where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor Monkoff Swain. Renee, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Chief, for the presentation. Always good to see reports coming back from the emergency services. We all know I like to talk about. So just a couple questions. So what was their call volume in 2021 at the end there?
I believe we had over 450 calls, I think is what we had in 2021.
Okay. And then has administration had any complaints in regards to changing the HERF regulations on that November 30th date?
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, I did receive phone calls and even stopped in some subdivisions on the notice from planning and development. I know I had some discussions with the CMBA and some developers that I reached out after they called me, and I explained our current situation based on my assessment once I got here. So I know that was done from my seat. What planning and development done? If Kendra is available, she may be able to answer that question for you to see what their interaction was with the developers on how they delivered that message. So.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. I'm sure the other counselors, I got just calls from the builders because obviously the developers are going to go through the city, but just a couple more questions. So zero lot lines, what's your opinion on zero lot lines when we can't meet the HERF and how that affects resident safety? Can you kind of just maybe talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, obviously, for me, if we can build homes safer, that is the ultimate goal for me. As obviously you're well aware, when we started the campaign several years ago about residential sprinkler systems, we haven't really seen a big uptake in that, but we do have products out there that make homes safer. So I understand from a safety aspect, I would like to make them safe as possible. And so that we don't have those exposure fires where one house damages another house. So for me, obviously, my influence on the building code is very limited. And those discussions and how that direction is happening is definitely well above my pay grade for sure. But for me, I would support any new initiatives that make homes safer through not only building materials, education, development, and overall increased fire safety within the community. So
Appreciate that, Chief. And last comment here. So obviously we just got that rapid response unit. It was my understanding that that was ordered to have a minimum of 2 firefighters respond 24 hours a day, as that's more cost effective to meet that HERF requirement. Can you explain that model a little bit and give us your opinion? Just from the fire rescue master plan, it was that medium no to the 4 to 10 years and then slowly transition to that full time.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, obviously you and I being in the same profession, we know that 2 people showing up on scene as a residential structure fire is going to do very little. That idea of sending 2 people there only so we can stop the clock does absolutely nothing for fire safety. If there's somebody inside that home and we show up with 2 people and go, okay, we're here, we beat the 10 minutes, but we can't do anything. I don't think that is the intent or thought process that I would ever recommend. And I'm not sure what the thought process was of that. I know that I'm not sending 2 people to a fire scene to do anything without more support coming, because we are going to be ending up with either a WCB claim or a fire death. And that is not obviously the intent, just to meet some timeline that is put in a code. I don't think that really provides any safety, and really probably increases the risk, not only to the people that are in the structure, but also to our firefighters that are responding. So 2 people to me showing up on scene, other than providing information on what's happening, is about as much as you can expect from them. And depending on those 2 people, would we trust those 2 people to be 2 years and under? What are they going to be able to do? Correct. So there's obviously a risk. And once I got here, that decision to not do that or not employ that vehicle in that manner, that was my decision, and was well supported by within the department, because they all seen it as a increased risk to them. So hopefully that answers your question.
100%. And I couldn't agree more. The question was more or less for the public and all of us to hear that. It was interesting. I saw in your presentation that you didn't include that unit in the service model. So appreciate your response and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chief, for that response. I had the same question, so I do appreciate your candor with that answer. It does make pretty good sense coming from you in this circumstance. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Councillor McGough-Swain. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor and Chief. First, let me just acknowledge, really appreciate the way that you presented the information today. There's five of us up here, maybe I'll speak for myself, who don't know the ins and outs. I mean, Bill and I hung out in a test drill at one point there, but have really no idea. You could have come in here and said, you guys need to spend $20 million tomorrow. And, when you put that safety lens on, then I'm spending it. You're telling me to do it, I do it. So I just really appreciate the way that you presented this today. I wanted to acknowledge that. Obviously, it's a challenge that we need to look at. And the costs that you've outlined there are significant for a community of our size. I've got more of a financial question, and you may defer it off to someone at administration. I'm just curious around as we go into these newer neighborhoods, we look at things like offsite levies and that sort of thing to help pay for these type of or pay for growth essentially. And we've in Beaumont we're very proud of our growth rate here, but this is an example of the downside of what happens, right? Of this is what it means and the expense that it comes with it. So I'm just curious, and maybe a broader question back to administration around the funding source. Is this something that we can look at with our newer neighborhoods as they start to build out? Is there a way to look at leaving those in advance to help offset some of these costs?
Through the mayor to Councilor McCoff-Swain, I see Ms. Raymond on the screen there. She would be more the expert to talk about levies. If she could comment, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Melvin. Through the chair to Councillor Munkoff-Swain, you're correct. We do have the ability underneath our levy model to charge what they call soft levies, which would account for fire, police, library, those costs. We would have to define the benefiting area and then charge that accordingly. So I know that in the city of Edmonton, they've recently just done a fire levy themselves, just went into effect here in January for their new developing greenfield areas. And a portion of that would then be able to be used for the capital costs of the fire hall. So fire hall construction, equipping the fire hall, and that sort of thing could be able to be captured underneath our levy model.
Great, thank you for that explanation. And I'd like us to, we don't have a motion on the floor here yet. It's just to receive his information right now, but I'd personally like us to start to look at this. That goes without saying. Obviously, we need to start looking at this. What I meant by that was, what I don't want to have, what I don't want to see is us kind of approve maybe one firefighter and some equipment one year, and the next year be like, oh shit, that maybe that's a bit too tight, and we can't do that. So I want to see this plan laid out. And fully costed and really just share and communicate that with the residents. So I think, you've presented extremely well here. You've outlined the risks and the challenges that are ahead of us. I'll defer to others who may have questions, but and I know administration, the recommendation on the report just says receive this information, and that's typically what happens until we look at this, come up with a more specific motion. So finally, I just want to acknowledge Councillor Van Nieuwkerk for making the motion and bringing this discussion here. It certainly caught me off surprise, even though I was here for the last 4 years. The report, I mean, you 7 days later, this is the first thing that you identified, and I just appreciate you flagging that for us. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor, and we'll see where the motion goes.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you. Nice to meet you. My first time meeting you. I was away, I think, when you were introduced. Again, like my colleagues have said here, thank you for raising the issue. This is a huge education for me in terms of what this all means. So I read it quite carefully, but still have a lot of questions. And I won't take the time to have them all answered today, but one that stands out for me is around the timeline. So help me understand that the strategy that's in place is a 3-year strategy, or is that one you're proposing?
The 3+ years is just to give you an idea of how long it would take once you said this is the level of service that you require for the city. That's how long it would take for us to implement to actually meet that. So we would have to go through, in theory, 3 years of development and as the community grows, and have it forecasted enough that once we said yes, we can meet the intent of the community. And what what I don't want to do is come before council and say, okay, this is what we need to do, and it being a Band-Aid fix. Have always been, if we're going to fix something, let's just do it right. It may take us some time, presently like the situation that we're in. I just cannot come to you as council, say, okay, I need $20 million tomorrow. And as Councillor Monkoff-Swain said, hide behind some wave my safety thing and say this is big risk. I don't think that is good for me as obviously as a professional or as from a business standpoint. That's an unrealistic expectation. So what we can do to mitigate that is to obviously come up with ideas on, okay, what is council's intent for the municipality to, if you want us to within the next 3 to 5 years achieve this standard moving forward, we can easily plan for that. Knowing that there's going to be some significant cost moving forward. And that was that whole intention of the slide, is just that if you were to say today, go, this is what you're looking at.
Still 3 years.
It's still,
That's what I just need to get my head around. So there's no quick fix to this because we have a hybrid model. We need to go through it. So that's my concern. We have a need to ensure prevention is at the highest level. And any equipment that people could put in their homes, whether it's sprinklers or alarms or whatever, that and awareness and prevention. I mean, though, to me, that's where we have to be really paying attention for the next 3 years while this is playing out. So the direction from council, do we need to actually say it, or is it already the direction you're taking to put this in place? Because that, to me, that's what the review was all about, but it was a while ago. So you're changing something, and I don't understand what you're changing.
So through the mayor to, my apologies for formality, through the mayor to Councillor Bernhardt. I've read through the fire service excellent review. It's given good direction on where we're presently are today. But to say that we're meeting the intent of the building code and that is a massive risk to the community, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is right now is that within our community, to build a new structure, you either need to build it, in theory, it's going to be more expensive to build because you need to have certain provisions that are in there, or they need to be further apart from each other. And that's really the intention of what this HERF standard is. This is not to scare anyone on council that we are at some massive risk right now. This is to presently say, this is our level of service that we're dealing with. If you want us to go to this higher level of service, this is what the cost is going to be. And that's really the intent of all of this. At the end of the day, I would love for all homes to be residential sprinklered, increased safety provisions, a very robust fire prevention education program to all of our obviously new members to our community and to our current and seniors. That is by far a big piece for me moving forward. But presently, we are not there yet when it comes to the staffing model to meet the intention of the building code.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilor Newkirk, you are next, but I want to go to Councilor Miller first for first round of questions. Then I'll come back to you for round two. Thank you. Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you. So the way I kind of interpret it right now is your model that you presented to us is something that you see happening if we are not eliminating zero lot lines, if we're not having the builders implement higher standards of building.
So through the mayor to Councillor Miller, what I'm stating right now is that we don't meet that 10-minute response time 90% of the time in the building code. That there in turn affects builders, that they need to build to a higher standard or homes need to be further away. So things like you can't have a side window in your house to look at your other neighbor's siding or into their house. There is provisions within the building code, and that's what that means. Our model right now is the model that we currently have, and how it affects the builders is presently that within the building code. We don't meet that threshold, they need to apply this standard as they build structures. If we meet that threshold, then they apply a different standard to how they meet. So it's based on how homes are built in our community.
Yeah. And I guess it comes down to choice as well and cost for the resident on what they choose to build. It's just concerning, like, I get what you're saying. It's just concerning that we're even having homes, zero lot lines, things like that, where we're gonna potentially put multiple rows at risk. So I don't know. Thank you for your answer.
No, and if I can comment.
Ms. Raymond?
Sorry, through your worship to Councillor Miller, all buildings are required to meet a level standard. So the zero lot lines are not necessarily, they're not at any more risk than the other buildings. They have to have enhanced separation that's between them. They already did have, excuse me, no windows, that sort of thing. They're already meeting a higher standard under the building code, and that higher standard will continue to be enforced. So a zero lot line isn't less safe of a product than another type that's already built in such a way to minimize fires. But I think when we're looking at obviously some closeness and density, those are things we have to balance out as the community grows and what council's desire is. But it's not necessarily just with the zero lot lines that this issue would exist. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
No problem. Follow up? No, okay, thank you. I'll have a quick question before I go to Councilman Newkirk for the second round. So Director Melvin, with respect to vehicles or apparatus rolling, so from 5 p.m. in the evening to 8 the next morning when we have the paid on call volunteer system in place, my understanding is that we have to have at least 4 volunteers to run a unit to a situation. Is that correct? We can't run with 3 and the 4th guy can't catch up, as the saying goes. Just to understanding what the rules are regarding when a apparatus can actually roll. Thank you.
For your question there, Mr. Mayor, obviously 4 is the minimum, depending on what's going on. Depending on what the nature of the emergency is. If we know more bodies are coming, could we roll 3? Could another people jump in another apparatus and roll? Absolutely. But once again, you obviously the understanding that you need a significant amount of firefighters on scene to mitigate whatever hazard that you're dealing with. And that hazard will dictate how many people that you're going to need. A structure fire is going to be a lot more people required than a motor vehicle accident or a single vehicle rollover. So it's not ideal to only have 4. Obviously, they build fire trucks with 6 seats. Normally, you want 6 people in them. Yeah. But we need to be understanding that sometimes we know we're going to need 2 apparatus. So maybe we put 3 people in one and 1 person to get the second apparatus here because we know what type of issue that we're going to. So depending on what the call is. So 4 is by far the minimum that we would be able to do anything on scene with 4 people for sure. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Just a quick follow-up question then. So on the zero lot line that Ashley mentioned a moment ago. So bottom line is right now with the changes from November 30th with her requirements, if a developer wants to build zero lot lines, they must build those zero lot line homes to a higher standard because of the fire restrictions on the HARP response times, correct? Or separate the houses further to avoid that additional building cost. Is that correct, essentially?
If I could defer that question, Mr. Mayor, to Kendra, if she can answer that. She deals with the builders and the changes that this have happened since November. So
thank you. I appreciate that. Ms. Raymond?
Yes, through your worship to, well, I guess yourself, with the zero lot lines, there really isn't been that much of an impact, except for we had a variance that was allowed for some type of soffit that was enabled and how far it could be from the property line. We did have to rescind that variance. But other than that, it really hasn't changed how zero lot lines are built and constructed. They already had to meet that higher standard because they were always within that limiting distance to the property line. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. That does clarify. I think. Thank you. Before I go to round 2 for questions, I just want a quick comment that I agree with Councilor Moncoff-Swain's earlier comments that now that's on our radar and we have a very proactive chief in front of us in terms of our fire safety master plan and bringing a plan going forward for us. I'm confident that in the coming budgets, we'll have some more feedback from you regarding future budget considerations for us going forward. So it won't fall off our radar. That's for sure. I do appreciate that. So round 2 of questions. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Muckhoff-Swain. Steve?
Yeah, Councilor Munkoff Swain can go first. That's fine. I just wanted to do kind of a little bit of a wrap up on this is all I was trying to do here.
If you prefer, fine. You had your own on screen first. So Sam, go ahead, please.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you go. You go. Yep, I can.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, I'm just trying to be cordial and make sure others are getting some airtime here. So, you know, for me, I really appreciate the authority by which you're answering the questions tonight. You know, that your command of, you know, the knowledge of what you're presenting on is apparent, and I appreciate that. So this is the where do we go from here? You know, are we going to see an updated plan from yourself? Obviously, you're thinking about, you know, the next budget cycle, but do you anticipate bringing some kind of a plan to council to talk about, or before the next budget cycle, or are you anticipating as preparations for the next budget cycle happen and, you know, the budget packages come out, that's your next forum for that? What are you anticipating there? Or maybe you haven't yet.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. Obviously, myself bringing any type of plan will definitely be a lot easier to be accepted if obviously we're both on the same page. And that comes to really what level of service are you looking for? I can build a plan for it and present that to you, whether that would be before the budget cycle, whether that would be during the budget cycle. If the initial plan is, okay, we want 24/7, 5 days a week, then we want to go to, in the following year, 24/7, 7 days a week. Then we want to go towards meeting the HERF standard, some type of staged approach. I think is probably the best. That's what many other municipalities do. They hire, you know, 3 or 4 people, and okay, they meet this benchmark, and then they hire a few more people, and they meet this benchmark. Instead of, knee-jerk reaction, now we need to hire, we need to find 16 firefighters and go through that recruiting process, and then realize that we don't have any trucks to put them in, or we don't have a fire hall to put them in. So there needs to be a lot of thought out process for sure. But once again, I will prepare whatever plan that council directs administration that this is what we want, or at the same time, what recommendation that I would present to council, if that's what something that you'd like, I could easily do that either way. So I'm fairly open on receptive on what you have. I have my own ideas where I think the municipality should go when it comes to the fire service and how fast and quickly that we're going. But I also need to look at this from a realistic standpoint, from a resident's perspective on what the actual cost is. And the last thing that we want to do here is make it so expensive to live here that our development stops. So there's that fine balance of how do we do that? And that's not only within my department, but that's obviously me communicating with several others. But at the end of it, whatever direction you would like from me, I'm willing to present at any time, whether informal or formal, either or.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good answer. Appreciate that. Director, Councilor Muckhoff-Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, Director, you're on fire tonight. Very good answer after very good answer. Good job. So I've got a motion that I asked to put up, but before we do, I just want to make a general comment, and I hope no one takes any offense to this, but I think we've talked about zero lot lines a lot. They come up in every discussion, whether it's this, whether anything to do with planning, it comes up. And I just, personally, I just get a bit frustrated that we don't actually talk about the issue itself. So if council wants to talk about zero lot lines, then let's put a motion forward and actually discuss whether we want them or not. And then we can have that fulsome discussion and talk to it directly, as opposed to talking around it when these things come up. So that's just my soapbox on that one. So I'll leave it there. If we could, I think there's a motion prepared here. And so the motion that I'd like to put on the floor here is that by the 2023 budget cycle, administration prepare a strategy for enhancing fire services to comply with the HERF standard in a staged approach. And I'll speak to it if I can.
Please proceed.
so what this motion is trying to do is to allow you to come back with the strategy of how we're going to get there. I'm confident that you're going to present a reasonable approach, and we'll go through that at budget time. What I'd encourage you to do is, we went through a fire service review, as you touched on, in 2018, and the information that was shared in that is different from what you're telling us today, and that's fine. But if we could just make sure it speaks to that, because obviously, the HERF is just one part of what your department does. So I think this will give us an opportunity to see that report, talk to the community about it, and talk about the pros and cons as we get into the budget cycle. So that's what I would like to see anyway, and I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think your motion actually speaks what I said earlier. I think we're right on the same track. We have a very proactive Director of Protective Services in front of us, and very knowledgeable and knows his stuff, and we can rely on his expertise. And I think into a budget cycle, it makes perfectly good sense to me as well, to give you some parameters on how to go forward and giving this council, the next couple of budgets, some opportunities to look at this and address this situation correctly and do it right the first time. I love that approach. I think we've done a very good job of that. Thank you, Director, for your presentation. So we have a motion in front of us, Council. Any further discussion on the motion as you see it before you? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Oh, sorry, Catherine. I didn't see your hand there. Sorry, I apologize. Councillor McCook. Catherine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, Director Melvin, does this give you enough to work off? I know you said the city can kind of decide what direction we want to take it, or you have the different options of just meeting HERF, or do we want to go full time, or do we want to keep the hybrid model? I guess this just goes towards meeting HERF, is that correct? Or will this give you the option to give us a few different?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook, I think based on the feedback that I received from all of you sitting at the table, I have enough information to put forward as in what that stage approach would be. As I've said, this gives at least enough information that we're not looking to achieve HERF by 2023. We just want to know what the plan is. And I would echo that the fire service review that was done in 2018, a lot of things have changed since then. It is a good benchmark to use, that fire service that we had reviewed, but this is now 2022, moving into 2023 budget cycle, that our community is not slowing down. The demand for emergency services is, and I mean, we've only talked this evening about the fire service. We haven't talked about ambulance service. We haven't talked about emergency management. We haven't talked about municipal enforcement. All of those things that make up my department. The fire service is obviously being in this job 30 years. I think based on what you're asking me to do, I can bring back during that budget cycle, and we still have time to tweak it if we want to be a little bit more aggressive, or no, we need to be a little bit less because of other things that are going on in the municipality that, we only have so much pot of money to deal with. How do we make all that work? And that may be with levies, that may be with other avenues where we can get funding sources through. So that's more than enough for me to bring a plan back.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we are looking at all the options, and one may be more expensive, but in the long term, due to our growth, it may be the better options. So I just wanted to make sure that this will kind of encompass everything, so we're able to look at all of them. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart. Kathy, you have a question?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'll just keep it quick. Before I vote on this, do we have the resources to do this strategy?
Nice little pause there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, whatever direction the council gives me when it comes to this, obviously, as it is a very important growth for our community, I will ensure that the resources are available to bring back the a well-documented options to council during that budget cycle.
It's a very good answer. Any further questions on the motion before us, council? Seeing none, I will ask council to vote accordingly. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Point of order, quick question, Ms. Winter, do we need to still accept director's report as presented, or this motion supersedes the need to do that? Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The motion that was in the report was just a recommended motion. Since you've already passed a motion, there's no need for.
There's no need to accept the report as presented. Okay, thank you very much. Director Melvin, thank you for your time this evening. Much appreciated. Council administration, we've been at it 95 minutes. I'm going to declare a 5-minute break. And council, please be back in 5 minutes. And council, we're back live again. I'll reconvene the meeting to continue our agenda this evening with item 7B, which is the options for improvements to council chamber technology. I believe Ms. Hudak, Rosa Hudak will be presenting. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and elected officials and public. My name is Jennifer Bosa Hudak. I'm the Director of Corporate Analytics and Technology for the city. I'm here tonight to speak to the report found on pages 33 to 35 of the council agenda package in front of you. Administration was directed on December 7th, 2021 to bring recommendations on improving the live stream equipment in council chambers prior to the 2022 spring budget review, with the overall goal of improving the consistency, usability, and the overall user experience. Working in collaboration with the Legal and Legislative Services Department, the report provides some background information, challenges, options, and corresponding budget implications we will speak to this evening. Please note, this report does not contemplate any information that is currently underway related to future city facility needs. However, when available, administration can incorporate recommendations as directed by council. Although the city's current council chamber met the needs of council for many years, the shape of the room, the materials on the wall, square footage, audiovisual components, and available bandwidth present significant challenges to having an optimal space for meetings, in particular, these hybrid meeting formats. Keeping this in mind, we'll now walk through the 3 options that we have on the report. Option 1, basically a modest upgrades, and its estimated cost is $55,000. Option 2 goes up in cost and it's more significant in the upgrades. That's $145,000 estimated, plus a 3-year service and maintenance operating agreement over a 3-year plan of $13,000. And the third option to contemplate is to outsource the provisions of live streaming. Basically, estimated range there goes from $98,000 to $168,000 per year, and that's an operating cost. With option 1, we basically have 4 improvements that we're including in that option. We'd add additional hardware at the administrative control center to moderate the meetings, extra monitors, and perhaps some CPUs. Replace the existing wall camera that's at the back with 2 additional in the room, which gives us a total of 3. We would also install features supporting universal design technology for closed captioning and assisted listening devices. One last component we would like to do in this option is actually conduct a software engineering review to determine what is required to integrate our current voting existing system on the desks that you have in front of you to the city clerk's meeting management information system so that it can actually live stream and be visible. The second option has 6 improvements. This particular one has some of the similar options that we're upgrading to 1. We're going to install universal design technologies for closed captioning and assisted listening devices. Provide additional hardware again at the designated administrative control center, so moderating the meetings is much more functional. Replacing again the existing camera with 2 additional in the room, making a total of 3. Add all new microphones, replacing all of the ones that are in this room. We would also upgrade the voting system, the hardware and the software, with the ability to display those votes for viewing public at the time of vote. So we could actually see them on the live stream. The last component in this one is basically to conduct, because you can hear the echoing, the noise attenuation study to actually determine acoustical solutions. And that's basically to reduce that echoing and the audio delays in the space. We would have to bring back that report and the findings with those costs. That's not part of that original 145,000 estimate. One of the things I want to note with the cameras for both option 1 and 2, and this is something that with technology, you either like it or you don't. The equipment that we're going to look at is basically going to have what we call follow me tech, which means it'll zoom in and out, automate, or we have static, which we have currently. If the follow me makes some people motion sickness, because it does, the speed of some council meetings isn't conducive, so that tech would not be well. We can actually go back to a static mode, but still have 3 camera views. Finally, the last option that we've presented in the report was basically to outsource these, everything the way it is in this room, and just bring in a camera crew inside the council chambers with their equipment and their voting, and they would actually live stream it from their systems. I'm going to leave it at that. At this time, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to have those.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm assuming that because this is actually looking for money, we'll probably bring it back to the 2023 budget
Or you can do
cycle.
spring, or you can do it for your spring amendment.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe back at information at this point. So I'll answer up to question, I'll open up to questions, pardon me. Councillor Miller, followed by Councillor McCook. Ashley, you have the floor.
Thanks. I just had one question around the camera because we have a view of like the speaker's back of their head. So would this include the front for the speaker? Okay,
Yes.
that was my only question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It is a little difficult, yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I presume closed captioning is included in all the options?
Yes.
Okay. And then how easy is it to move this type of equipment if needed?
If needed, we can move the equipment. It would be the cabling that we'd have to repull and things like that. And we probably would not reuse it moving into another location. So the tabletop, things like that, we can move. Anything that's portable, we would move.
Okay. And then option 2, does the 145 include the 13K for 3
No,
years?
No,
That's
the
separate?
145 is basically the one-time upfront estimate that we have. The 13,000 is the operating that we'd show on the operating budget, which would increase your tax levy.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, I'll ask for the motion put up on this. Thank you for your presentation, by the way. Motion on the screen to accept the report as information. And as soon as it's up there, I'll ask for a councillor to move the motion, please. Councillor Swain.
Yeah, sure. I can move the motion. I was gonna speak to it if that's okay.
Yep.
So just thank you again. Just going through the report, recognizing that there is some additional information that is coming back to us in Q3 on the broader city future facility needs. So that's why I support this motion here. I acknowledge, Councillor, for bringing it forward, and we always want to improve the technology here to make sure that residents can see what's going on at City Hall. But I would like to see what comes back with that broader report and see if we can fit that in. So I appreciate the recommendation, and that's why I support the motion that I moved.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on the motion as put forward? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please. And that carries unanimously. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Council. Next order of business on our agenda is 7C, Mayor Daniluk motion following notice assured income supports. I move that by the end of the second quarter of 2022, administration provide a report on the feasibility, cost, regional, municipal comparison, and considerations of eliminating fees for access to the city's recreation facilities for residents on the assured income of the severely handicapped, commonly called the AISH program. I'll speak to my motion. I was approached by a couple of residents who are recipients of the AISH program, And they mentioned how they would love to utilize our facilities in the city, but unfortunately, the cost of membership is just too expensive and data rate as well. They mentioned that the city of Edmonton does offer the people of this program free access to their facilities in Edmonton. And so I felt important to bring this to council's attention, that we could view this as a helping all our citizens to be inclusive of all of our resources. These people on this program live at a very, very low income level. I think I've talking to Ms. Willison, I believe they're pretty much at the poverty level. It's not a good situation for them to be in, and we can help them to access our facilities. Now, rest in mind too, they still must get themselves from where they are to our facilities. That is something outside the scope of this motion, but it does allow these people on this severely restricted income program to access our facilities if we were to proceed with this. Now, currently we do offer a discount of $150 a year, I was told by administration, for an annual membership. So it goes from 550 down to around 400. Even that 400 is quite financially difficult for people on this program. So I thought we'll bring it to council's attention, see if we feel we can proceed with the report. Also for council's information, at this time, administration is not aware of anybody on the ACE program who has a membership at the current rec center. So there is no financial implication that we're aware of at this point prior to the report being brought back to council. So I'll conclude my comments at this point. I'll accept any other I'll look for any questions from comments from council. Councilman Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thanks for bringing this idea forward. I appreciate that, and it's been good to think about. One of the things I was wondering is, and what I don't know is, would any of these individuals have, aides or support staff or something, that would be going with to the facility? And if in that case, might that be contemplated in this report, right? So, that was the only question I had. I don't know if administration knows that at all, but probably in this report, if there was an issue like that, it could be brought forward. So,
great suggestion for the report, Steve. I have no answer to that either. Administration can maybe take note of that. Comment from Councilor Newkirk is part of the report should this motion be passed. Councilor Barn, oh, sorry, Steve, you were finished. Thank you. Councilor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for bringing this forward as well. I would hope when the report comes back as well that the administration might look at other forms of assistance and support that might be in the same category or close to it with AISH. Supports for Independence is what the one I'm thinking of used to be called, but I don't know if they've changed the name of that program. But there are supports for people on low income other than AISH. AISH is specifically around people with handicaps or disabled individuals. But if low income is the reason why we're including this, then there's other programs that might qualify for this, government support programs.
Yeah, it came from a couple of people who are part of the AGE program themselves, and due to their financial circumstance, they can't afford to be members of our, it came from that particular direction, but your comment is a valid one in terms of other.
I do believe the city of Edmonton looks at not just AISH, but also other government support, income support programs. Okay. If you are already receiving government support, you'd have free access, in other words.
Okay, perhaps the report could encompass that angle as well too, if we could. Mr. Easton made a note of that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions to speak on this particular motion, I'll ask the question. Would you please vote accordingly? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. I do appreciate that. The next order of business on our schedule this evening is 8A, Councillor Inquiries, Response and Reports, and Councillor Barnhart, your onboarded RIC issues report has been brought back to you. I believe that's been taken care of. And also mine on affordable housing versus supportive housing information has been received by myself. Are there any councillor inquiries, responses, or reports at this time? Councillor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. This is not regarding the onboarded RIC issues. Thank you for that information. It's about the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation. And I wanted to just let councillors know that if they haven't already heard and received the invitation to the Municipal Conversation number 6 that's coming up on May 11th. Forgive me if it's May 16th. It's one of those days. Okay. But I know that invitation did come out to, and I believe, Mayor, that you're planning to attend. So yes. I wanted to really put a plug in for it because I believe that there are a number of questions, and understandably so. The housing area is quite complex. And this is our 6th municipal conversation that we've had in the region. 7 different municipalities participate. Our staff are doing a fantastic job providing information over the last couple of years about what's happening here in our community, with the purpose of sharing that information with other municipalities and hearing conversations about what that's about. And what will be coming out to you as well in, the board has to approve it this week, but we have a 2-page annual report, which we've done deliberately so that people will read the salient points. And that is coming out to you in another 2 weeks. So just wanted to close the loop a little bit here. I know that we're all busy on different committees and boards, and I wanted to make sure that this council knew as much as they could about what's happening in Leduc region for housing. There is a lot happening, and I just want to make sure that we participate in those events. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further requests to speak, I will briefly make a comment myself before I go on to the CEO update. And that is simply, I did attend on behalf of council this morning, pardon me, the sod turning grand opening of the facility, of the ground opening, pardon me, of the Fort Mackay and the Landrex East Pine development, affordable housing complex in the south part of Beaumont. CMAC was heavily involved with that, as was Landrex, the developer, and Fort Mackay First Nation. They're very excited to be part of Beaumont, and I met the chief of the First Nation as well as the Grand Chief as well, and they're very favorable towards Beaumont. Landrex was very complimentary to our planning people in our municipality. They thought we did an excellent job working with them. They pass on kudos to the planning department, so please do so, CEO Schwartz, on our behalf. Thank you. And they're very looking forward to breaking ground actually on Monday. They'll be the big shovel will start working on Monday, so I'll drop by and get a picture of that too. And it's an awesome thing for our community. It's going to be a very good development. They expect 18 months construction time, so it does look very aggressive construction time, but if they can do it, that's going to be great for our community from affordable housing perspective. So thank you, council, for indulging me with that comment for a moment. Next order of business is CEO Schwartz. Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Daniluk. You left one part out of your meeting this morning that you passed along, and that was the compliment to the condition of our roads.
Actually, if you don't mind, I will do that if you don't mind. 4 or 5 people I met this morning at the ceremony are from Edmonton, and they were amazed at how good our roads were in Beaumont compared to Edmonton. Their words, not mine, just saying. And I thought that was very noteworthy when 4 or 5 made the point of saying what a great job our roads work in this condition, given compared to their municipality where they live in. So thank you, CEO Schwartz. I didn't want to say that, but you've opened the door, so I'm happy to pass it on. Thank you.
I can be cheesy once in a while too. And on that note, a couple other comments. I'll be really brief here because we've got guests that have been waiting for a little over an hour for our in-camera portion. But I do want to take a second to acknowledge our finance group and counselors who are returning. This will be the 5th time you hear this. We have collected all of our tax arrears, so there will be no need for an auction. Every year, the MGA dictates that people who are past 2 years in arrears must, that we can put your property up for auction. There's no requirement for us to follow up after that. And every year our finance people email, phone, make every arrangement possible. And we have yet to have a property go to auction. Also, in the last couple of weeks, we had the spring and summer registrations for fitness and community programs, aquatics, and the amount of response was insane. In a 24-hour period from March 14th to 15th, our guest services folks fielded 1,800 calls. We have almost all of our programs, 90% of our spring swim kids courses are booked. 92% the guests registered, or 925 guests are registered for spring aquatics, 300 guests for summer aquatic programming. It's just absolutely crazy. The revenue for that sign up blitz is in the $126,000 range. Plus there's also BSRC sales. So just outstanding, and shows that the community is really taking advantage of that facility and our other rec facilities. I want to thank the recreation folks for the effort they did in bringing in, the net or the total revenue is about $143,000. 70% of all swim kids courses are full. So yeah. A couple other things I wanted to pass along. Nobody on council mentioned the absolutely exciting time we had on the weekend, starting on council's strategic plan. And I say that half jokingly. I really enjoyed it. And I think the community is going to see a plan that builds off of former plans and continues this community to be the place of choice, and spending a good focus on alternate sources of revenue and social structures. It was a really good discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing that pulled together. Admin met this morning to start pulling the tactics and the resource requirements and some measures together, and we commit to have that to you in April at a committee of the whole meeting. The other thing I'd like to, two other real quick things. One is Beaumont consistently over the last 3 weeks has been the lowest COVID case rates in our region, has been showing the lowest. I think we've got like 12 cases or less positive cases, but there was a time because of our population, a little spike in numbers has really affected that case per 100,000. So it's really difficult for us to get back down to where we need to go. But we have been consistently at the bottom of the region for the last few weeks, and we were consistently at the top of the region for several months. So good work, everybody. And the last thing I want to say is thank you to Stacy Mead, who's on my right, for stepping up. We really appreciate it. Stacy's going to provide some tech support, some much needed tech support for putting this meeting on. And this is the first one, that first training session, if you will. So thank you, Stacy, for taking that extra work on. We appreciate it. And now she's going to kill me. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mike. I want to acknowledge administration and council members on this past weekend for strategic planning, taking 2 full days away from their families to work on a strategic plan that's very important for Beaumont's future. So thank you for taking that time away from your families doing that. Much appreciated. 2 quick announcements. Deputy Mayor Moncalf Swain will be speaking on my behalf on behalf of the council as well Thursday night at the opening of the Mitchell Hockey Tournament, which is very exciting. I'll be speaking at the Ringette Tournament opening on Friday night here in Beaumont as well. So we have 2 big tournaments. Hopefully Beaumont will come through with flying colors on those tournaments, provincial hockey and ringettes. Thank you. Moving on then, our agenda, number 10, notice of motion. Any notice of motions to be made this evening from a member of council? Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor, followed by Councillor McCook. Kathy?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I would make the following notice of motion that at the April 12th, 2022 council meeting, I will move that by the end of the 3rd quarter of 2022, administration prepare a report on options for addressing issues and conflicts related to snow and ice clearing amongst neighbors, including but not limited to potential provisions in the community standards bylaw or land use bylaw, mechanisms for conflict resolution, and resources to support residents experiencing conflict.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that, I guess at the next meeting, April, next meeting, that by the end of the 3rd quarter of 2022, administration prepare a report that sets out a plan to review Beaumont's financial systems that includes the possibilities of integrating automated systems for the city's various customer-facing transactions.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Any further notice of the motion this evening? Seeing none. Evening, council, administration, members of the public. We have closed our closed session and we are back live. And at this point, no motions or business comes to the closed session. At this point, I'll declare the meeting closed at 9:48. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.